Hi everyone, welcome to this video where we're going to be introducing to you the Move tool in S-Frame that allows you to not only move geometry but also manipulate it in a number of other ways. And we're going to start with a very basic example that we're going to just replicate and use some of the different functionality of this Move tool. This same functionality can be applied to more complex examples, but we're going to go through the process of actually constructing a very simple model and manipulating that. So I'm going to use the member definition tool and I'm going to define a column. Here I'm going to use the one joint method to do this. And I'm going to say that my column here is growing in the z-axis and it's going to have a total length of 3,500 millimeters. Click OK and then I can place it somewhere on my screen. I'm just going to place it right here for now. And I also want to have a wall. So I'm going to define a wall using the panel element tool. And with the panel element tool selected, I can choose the type of wall I'd like, the pattern that I want to use. In this case here, I'm going to use the wall panel option. And then I say the dimensions, the mesh density, and so on, the thickness, which I'll say is 300 millimeters. And I'm going to change the material type as well here from the default of steel to concrete. And I'm going to draw this one in right here. So you can see I have basically a wall that I will later mesh, as well as a column at the moment. And I'm also going to define one more member using the two joints method. And this is going to be with the steel material property again, just from the top of this column to the top of the wall. Now I can mesh this wall. I can click the mesh panel elements, type membrane plate or shell, and generate the shell elements there. And we've got our model created. Again, a very simple structure that we're going to be working with. And I want to start by introducing the Move tool. So I can go here to the Edit menu when I'm in the Geometry window. Under the Edit menu, I see that I have this option for Move. And I can click on it and I can see all these different options. So first of all, let's start with the Translate option. We'll work our way down this list. So here I've got the Translate option and I can specify basically with respect to the global coordinate system the different translation options, whether it's with respect to the X, Y, or Z axis. So if I want to move this set of geometry that's currently selected, I can say here I want to move it 1,500 millimeters in the Y axis, which is this axis right here. So click OK, and you can see it's moved over to that side. Another option that I could consider as well is I could simply just go to the joint tool. I could right click on any joint and click on properties. This will open up the joint spreadsheet for me. And you'll see here that I have this Y coordinate spreadsheet that shows me all the 2,500 millimeter coordinates of all the joints that I have on my single plane of elements. So there's a single plane in the XZ plane. And I can change this coordinate. So I can say rather than 2,500 millimeters, maybe I want it to be 1,000 millimeters. So I'm going to type in 1,000 millimeters here when I have this entire column selected. And I can click the check mark and it's going to populate that data that I've entered here into this field for all the selected cells. I'll click OK now and it's been moved back. So two different ways that we could accomplish this. Now moving on with the Move tool, no pun intended, I'm going to click on Move again. And here we have the Rotate option. So this allows us to rotate about the coordinate system origin, the user coordinate system origin. And I can say here, maybe I want to create a rotation about the z-axis of this origin. And this is going to be a 180 degree rotation. So I'll click OK. And you can see here it's moved over 180 degrees. Remember that it was 1,000 millimeters offset from the x-axis of this global coordinate system. And it's rotated to negative 1,000 millimeter offset from the x-axis as well. Now continuing on, under Edit Move, here we have the Reflect option, where we can create basically a mirror of the geometry that we currently have. So I may want to mirror this about a specific plane. In this case here, it's defaulted to the ZY plane, which is the plane comprised of this vertical plane and this y-axis here. And I can choose whether or not I'd like to make a copy. So I'm going to click OK, and I'll do that, and you can see what I've come up with now. Edit, I could even repeat this again, and I could say, you know what? We want to create another reflection of this, another mirror, but this time it's going to be about the XZ plane. So the ZX plane here, and I'm going to make a copy of that as well. And you can see now we're starting to get some repetitive geometry. Now there are other ways again that we could accomplish this. We could use the clone tool, we can use the copy tool, and we have other videos on that specific topic or those specific tools if you want to check those out as well. Continuing on, let me just select maybe a subset of this geometry. So I'm just going to go and click on just one of these. I'll select, oh, so I used the wrong tool. Undo. Using the selection tool, I'm just going to select just this one frame. And I'm going to go back to Edit Move. And this time, I want to use the scale option. So with the scale option selected, here I can change basically in each axis the geometry scale. And it's going to use those joint coordinates to help with this. So for example, I may want to shrink the dimensions in the x-axis. I'll say 0.5. In the y-axis, well, this is actually all sharing the same y coordinate, so it's not going to really have any effect. So I'll just keep this as 1 or 0. And then I may want to actually grow this as well. So I'm going to say I want to double the height in the z-axis, but I want to shrink it down in the z-axis. Now click OK. And you can see what that's left us there. We probably want to remesh this panel because we have very long skewed elements. And if I wanted to remesh this panel, I can simply click on the quadrilateral element tool. I can see all my quadrilateral elements are showing up as shell elements. That's the purple coloring there. And I can hold down the control button on my keyboard and left click and drag around the selected shell elements to get rid of those. And I have some joints there as well that were attached to some of those shells. I'll get rid of those as well. And now I can remesh. I can just click this button here and it's going to remesh all the elements, the panel elements that aren't currently meshed. And you can see it's using the mesh density that we had set for the other panels. So it's basically 10 elements along the longest edge of the panel. I'm going to click yes to retain this, this mesh. And we can continue on with the last few options in the Move tool. So under Edit Move, we've seen that we've used the Translate, Rotate, Reflect, and Scale. Now let's look at the Slope option. In the Slope option here, I can basically define a slope relative to the current geometry. So I want to choose which plane I'd like to define the slope in. I'm going to say it's going to be in the XZ plane, this plane right here. And I want this slope to be, let's say, 0.1 times Z. So it's looking at basically the height of this structure in the Z axis, which should be 7 meters now, if I remember my geometry correctly. And I'm going to basically apply a linear slope to the rest of the geometry, in this case here, of 10% of that height. So that would be 70 centimeters. So here I'll click 0.1, click OK, and you can see it's now sloped that over to the side, as we can see here. A few other options that we have, if I go to Edit, Move, we have this Translate Numbers option, which allows us to basically renumber our joints, or our members, or our shells, if we had a specific reason to do so. You may notice that if you're creating a lot of elements and deleting them, you might have your numbering of your subsequent elements be quite large numbers. And if you've deleted all the members below that, you could always go back to the original joint increments, maybe starting at 1. You just have to make sure that those joint increments aren't in use, so it will just require a little bit of management on your end, but you can renumber those as you see fit. And lastly, we have the reverse local axis, and I think before we introduce this, we should probably just look at the existing setup that we have for this. So I can review the member local axis, for example, if I go to the member axis orientation tool. And here, I have at the data bar, the display local X, local Y, and local Z axis, and we can see those for all the members that we've defined in this model. And what I can see here is basically my local X is pointing in the vertical direction, so in alignment with the member, but pointing vertically upwards. My Z axis is pointing kind of in alignment with the X axis of the global coordinate system for the most part, with the exception that it is aligned with this now sloping member. And my Y axis is essentially the opposite direction of the global Y axis. And this is dictated by the direction that we define these members in. So the start point to the end point will define the direction of the local X axis of our member. And the local Y axis is generally going to line up with your strong axis, so it's pointing towards your top flange of your I-beam, for example. And the Z axis can be found with the right hand rule. Now, if I wanted to change the orientation of any of these members, I can click on which member I'd like to change. So I'm just going to go here and select just my sloping member for now and remind ourselves of the coordinate system that's being used. Now, if I go to Edit, Move, here I have this reverse local axis option, and it's not giving me any other options, which is fine because all it's going to do is just basically turn this local coordinate system around. So I'll click OK. And you can see now the z-axis, or the x-axis rather, is pointing down. We still have to make sure that our y-axis would be aligning with the strong axis of our member, and then the z-axis will be found with the right-hand rule. So that's a really quick dive into the Edit Move tools. If you'd like to learn more about geometry manipulation, we have plenty of other videos on the clone tool, on spreadsheet editing, on general modeling, as well as the copy and paste tool in S-Ray. So we encourage you to check those out and also check out our training courses through the Altair Learning Management System.